is up, everybody? It is Panda, and for this review, I'm going to be reviewing Kakegurui. If you want to know what Kakegurui is about, it is about a girl who joins this school that is outrageous. All they do is gamble. They gamble. That is what you do to get around in the school. You're the top or you're the worst, and that's just how it is. It's the survival of the fittest type of thing in this school. It's pretty interesting. And this girl basically is a compulsive gambler. She just wants to gamble for the fun of gambling because she's obsessed with it. And that's pretty much the story. Now we're going to get into some spoilers here. There's not really anything to spoil per se in this show, I would say, because it's pretty much what you see is what you get. You don't really get anything that's like, oh, shocking spoiler in this show. But we're just going to get right into it. So the main girl, Yumiko, is a compulsive gambler, and we kind of get introduced during the first episode. It's a pretty good introduction, I would say. It's not really anything that's great. What it does, it's basically just to show you that she acts kind of normal, like a normal preppy girl in a way, and then really she's like this very obsessive, crazy gambler girl. And it's just kind of showing you those two sides of her, and kind of giving you that shock factor that it likes to do in the first episode. Now, there's some other things in this show, like it doesn't really work like past the like it does in a way after we get to the initial episodes, but in the first half of the show, this stuff of the compulsiveness kind of feels repetitive in a way. And like the first like 5 episodes, I feel like it's pretty repetitive and it doesn't really lead anywhere that's very interesting. But after those 5 episodes, it gets interesting again. And even though it's not that interesting, it does keep you like, okay, like it's somewhat entertaining. You can like get through it and you can be like, okay. But those definitely, I would say the first 3 episodes, pretty hard to get through, and you're just like, are they gonna do anything with this stuff, or are they just gonna keep doing the same thing over and over again? The main guy, he is honestly, I don't even know his name because he's not really that even important. He is honestly just a boring character who is nothing of a character at all. He is the character, he's the point of view character. He's the person that's supposed to be there to represent you, the viewer, so then like you have somebody to put your like shoes into. You can like see yourself with that guy. You can see yourself next to Yumiko doing this crazy stuff. So he's just kind of there doing that. I never understand why we need, I mean, I totally get point of view characters, but make them something of a character, not just like I'm the character, because that it doesn't do anything. And it's really bad when people do this in shows, and it doesn't help at all. The gambling, though, the over-exaggeration of everything that goes on, as I said, that was pretty much like the same thing over and over again, it does work. I like the facial expressions, I like the eyes being lit up, and the camera angles that they use in this show. It's pretty interesting. There is also a blonde girl named Mary who wants to take control of her own life, and it's pretty interesting to see her kind of go through these notions, because what I gotta say is, Yumiko and the main guy really are kind of bland and boring characters. Yumiko is pretty much just a gambler and pretty obsessive all throughout the whole show. She doesn't really get more than what you see on the surface. She's pretty much just like that. She's just a character who's just a compulsive gambler. I mean, that's all she is as a character. The main guy is really nothing, so I was trying to find something in this show to really show that these characters are at least somewhat interesting, and Mary is one person that got a little bit in her arc that she had with becoming a Mike, and a Mike is a person who basically, like, if you lose your gambling, like, if you lose in the gambling enough, then you have debt, so then you become less than human in the school. It's a pretty interesting aspect of this show, and when Yumiko does it in the show, it definitely works, and I do like it a lot. It's one of the stronger points of the show, but definitely the blonde girl, seeing that she wants to take control of her own life again, having that emotional wreckage inside of her head and wanting to get back at the people that did this to her, it's pretty interesting. And Mary is a character that I'm just like, okay, it does kind of drop off later on, but she definitely goes through the arc, so you're just like, okay, I wish they would have used her more though in the later, like in the middle part of the season, because she's kind of just a character that kind of stands on the sidelines, and it's kind of like, okay, well, you could have done more with her. The main kind of thing about the show, what they do when I think they really hit their stride, is like episode 6, I would say, is when they have the student council members kind of get their own arcs. And that's kind of like the big thing here. Student council members are the entertaining and crazy characters that get their own kind of 2-episode arcs or 1-episode arcs that they get, and they're pretty crazy. You get to see like the crazy one-eye girl with the patch over her eye, and see how crazy she is, and how she just wants to die. She doesn't like gambling as much as she just wants the thrill of death, and you get to see this in her. It's the thing of this show trying to be a psychological show that's kind of like okay, and it works in some areas, and some areas you're just like, you could have done a little bit more with that, but for the most part, they're okay. The idol girl, Yuma, and how she puts a facade to be famous, and you get to see the double side of her life and the double side of her own personality. You get to see Sumeragi. She wants to take control of her own life again after she was taken down by the student council that she was part of. And also you get to see the geeky guy Kaida. You get to see his life shattered before his eyes because he thinks he is the best, and that nothing can touch him. But you get to see that there's things that can touch him, and he actually sees that his life is shattering apart. And it's pretty interesting. It definitely gets in like the psychological nature of what the show is trying to do, but it's nothing like it would work better if they would have progressed Yumiko's character more. And if they just did that a little bit better, I would really like this show a lot. I definitely like it. I just think it's not really that great. It could have been great if they did more with the characters, but doing these student council members, they're just kind of getting the 2-episode arcs and leaving. It's a fun watch. I gotta say, it's a fun watch, but overall, like, there could have been more to the show. The last episode, pretty entertaining, I gotta say. It was a pretty entertaining thing to see the crazy yet calm feeling you get when watching the president and Yumiko kind of fight it out in this gambling tournament that they have. It's really interesting and really cool, and you get to see how it affects them both and how their mindsets really are. It really gets in there, and I wish they would have done that a little bit more with Yumiko and getting into her head, because you get that with the president more than you get with Yumiko, which is kind of interesting. But overall, I'm just like, okay. And it was really cool in the last episode to see Yumiko kind of infect the main guy, who was kind of the one-note character that I said, who is the point of view character. It was pretty cool to see him kind of get infected by her and use that to pick the card at the end. It was interesting. It was a good use of camera work, and I really like the presentation they used to show it. The presentation of the show is probably the best thing about the show and what makes it at least, enjoyable to watch. Some things I gotta say, most of the games come down to luck. They say like it's strategical, but really it's more just like strategical cheating for the most part. Like and also Yumiko kind of figures out like the like she figures out the games pretty easily in the show. I don't really get like some of them you can totally understand how she got it, but I don't understand how the student council members didn't understand the flaws in their tactic or realize that it was such an easy thing to realize they were cheating to overcome it, But overall, I'm just like, okay. Now, here's the thing. There was 1 or 2 areas in the show where the games were hard to wrap their head around. Now, what I gotta say, I think it was about 1 or 2 episodes, and it was episode 4 and 5, I believe. It was the part where Yumiko becomes a Mike, and I gotta say, that episode overall, I felt like it was really hard to understand what was happening. It was also kind of like the feeling of, you're doing the same thing over and over again in episode 4 and 5. We were getting progression, but it was at the point where it was coming off episode 2 and 3, which really felt like a drag. So episode 4 and 5 really felt like a drag, and definitely when I didn't understand what was happening with the switcheroo of the game that was going on in episode 4 and 5, which is like they switched their prices out or something like that, and then like they did something else, and I was like, what? It was weird. Definitely I had to look it up and actually understand what was happening in that episode. I definitely get it now, but in that moment, I was confused on what was happening. Now, that didn't happen, like, at all in the other episodes. I pretty much got the gambling. But overall, yeah, that was kind of like something that happened in those 2 episodes. The opening is probably one of the greatest openings I've seen in a while. I gotta say, it's pretty unique. It's pretty interesting. It's actually longer than 1.5 minutes, which is pretty crazy for an anime opening, which usually they try to stick to 1.5 minutes on their openings or shorter. I've never seen one that goes longer, and this one went longer. I think it's about 2 minutes or about 1:50. So that's pretty crazy, I gotta say. I'd give this show a 6 out of 10. Overall, Kakegurui is a fun anime that tries to not to take itself seriously at all, but sadly doesn't do anything unique or interesting with most of its cast to make it anything other than fine. Gamling could have been better in some areas, but the obsessive nature of the show pushed it along nicely. I do like it. I just think it could have done better with its characters. Like, I really do. I really think it could have done better with its characters, and that would have made it a better show. If you're looking for any recommendations on the show, I recommend Prison School. It's a pretty crazy out there anime that doesn't really try to take itself seriously at all. It has some crazy facial animations just like Kakegurui, and it's just trying to have a fun time. I think it's a great show. I think it definitely knows what it's doing, and it hits those points well in that show. So tell me what you guys think about this anime. I think it was fine. I enjoyed watching it. It definitely was an easy watch, definitely based on what was happening. But yeah, tell me what you guys think about this anime, and I'll talk to you guys later.